All right. First, I guess I want to start with, the last few weeks, I think the sports world between Willie Mays, a local hero, Bill Walton and Jerry West, we've lost those guys. And specifically with Jerry, a member of this franchise, one of the iconic players in the NBA. Jonnie, his son, works with us. So I think it's a tough loss for the NBA family, for our organization, for their family. I've known the West since I was 9 years old. And so it was just tough to hear that news. Our condolences go out to the family, and Jerry will certainly be missed. He was a giant in this world, in the sports world, and condolences there. And just thinking of those guys, Jerry, Bill, and Willie. So anyway, on to more basketball-related stuff. With draft this week coming up, we're excited about it. This time of year is fun. You got free agency, you got trades, you got draft, all ways to improve your team beyond what I think is the most important, which is internally, with player development and that stuff. So we're looking at things. I think it's a little bit different this year, not having a first-round pick. We've got 52 in the second round, which I think hopefully we'll be able to find a quality player, a quality addition to the franchise. But, I think in that regard, all things will be on the table. We'll explore options, and just like we do every year, kind of make the right decision and roll with it. So I'll open up to questions. I'm sure there's quite a few things to cover, but let's get through it.
Considering, I guess, your guys' situation, what free agency has become in the league? No first-round draft pick, as you said. Is trade your best avenue to really change this team?
Again, I'm of the belief the internal development is. I'm a big player development guy. I think our younger players have a really big chance to grow and get better. Pods, JK, Trace, Moses, and then even our guys we've had here for a while can get better. I think that's got to be the main thing. And then from there, you look to see what else is out there, and can you make a move or a couple moves or do some stuff that enhances your team. But if that's what's like the one thing we're hinging everything on, it's so hard to make a trade now in the NBA. I think we got a lot of teams that are really smart. They know what they're doing. To make a good quality trade that benefits both sides, which is what everybody's looking for, is tough. And so we'll explore that stuff. A lot of conversations going on, but I don't want to get ahead of it and just say there's just going to be some big move that we're going to do and all that. Could be, if it was there, great, but it's not something that must happen.
Are you close to decision on Chris Paul's contract, or maybe even is it close to maybe even pushing that delay?
Yeah, it's close in the sense of it's, I guess, less than a week away now, so it's coming up. We're looking through everything. I think all options are still on the table in terms of keeping Chris. Obviously, there's a scenario where it gets waived, but those conversations, kind of talking it through with him and his camp, we'll keep that kind of to ourselves. But I'd say, everything's open.
Mike, when you mentioned that trades are hard to make, you look at the two teams that were in the finals. Boston made huge trades last summer, bringing in KD and Drew.
Yeah.
Dallas made huge trades at the deadline, bringing in guys. So what's going to be the key to actually making a big trade between now and
Well, it's having a willing partner. And so I think to do that, you got to find the right team. You got to find the right player that works for you, and just having players that are available, right? I can call on everybody, but if the player's not available, if there's not a price, then there's no trade that can be made. So I think we have to be realistic, and I don't want to press and overdo something. Some patience needs to take place, while at the same time recognizing sort of this time horizon we have with Steph and Draymond and hopefully Klay. As those guys kind of get a little bit older, we have to be mindful at a point maybe they're not at a level to compete for a championship. I don't think that's too near, but at some point it probably will be.
Mike, going through this for the first time last year, the draft, trades, free agency, what is the biggest thing you've learned in the 1 year span?
I think beyond certainly learning about our team, I think in general, I think I mentioned it just before, it's just hard to do deals. I can't stress that enough. There's a lot of good teams out there that know what they're doing, whereas in the past, it just seemed like you could pull a fast one on somebody, or there's different reasons for doing a trade. Now it's hard. There's salary related trades, but how often do you see a trade that's like straight basketball for basketball? And so because of that, it's just not easy. But at the same time, we know here some good teams have been built based on like, getting an Andrew Wiggins in a trade, something like that. So got to keep pursuing those things, but recognizing they're not always easy.
You mentioned Klay.
Can you just describe where the state of those talks? Is there an offer on the table for Klay right now?
Yeah, I mean, all that stuff, I think, honestly, Tim, is private. We want him back. I think we said that all along. Hopefully he'll come back. But as far as, like, the specifics of discussions and those types of things, I think it's important to keep kind of in-house. And when we figure out a solution to all that, we'll have news for you.
It's the first summer under the new CBA rules. Just how have those, the aprons and the luxury tax, all of that been for you guys just navigating?
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I think most of you guys know we Ansi Salah moved on, our cap guy. We hired a new guy, John Phelps, so he's hit the ground running. And I think for us, understanding the new rules and different things around the cap is something I had a good feel for before. Some things have changed, and then so I hit John a lot on, hey, under the new stuff, and it's a little tricky as the league year turns. Here we are in June, and in July it changes. So, like, keeping all that in mind as far as a trade now versus trade after, it's a little tricky, but it's not going to be, like, a problem.
Anything jump out as you watch the postseason?
Yeah. Let's see. We're talking the hockey game tonight, or that'll be exciting. I think just in terms of the postseason, like how competitive it is in terms of parity, and I think you see the last 5 seasons, you got 5 different champions. I think that's exciting for the league in the sense of, if everybody's got a chance in a way, whether it's a play-in team making the finals or a team that's like Dallas, 5th seed making the finals. Like, everybody's got a chance if you come together at the right time. And I don't think there's any like overwhelming teams out there. So I think it gives us a chance a team that didn't make the playoffs like last year and ourselves, how far away are we really? And most times you'd say, man, we're quite a bit of ways, but the way things are shaped now and there's a push for parity, like I think we can turn things around pretty quickly.
Joe Lacob has said, publicly that Plan A is to dip under the luxury tax. In your conversations with him recently, is that still the sense that you get from him?
I think it's about like being smart about it, and so from that sense, it's more like if there's a point to go over the tax, if there's a point to go into one of the aprons, like we will do it because the most important thing to him is winning. He's shown that you just have to be careful under the new rules because they're so punitive. And so balancing what's right for our team, what's right for the rules to allow us to go forward and make the right decisions is the big test. But like Joe may have an idea in mind about what he wants to spend, but when presented an opportunity to spend a lot of money and have a great team, I know what his answer is going to be.
Just getting back to Klay. At some point, do you have to strip away emotion from this? Do you have to strip sentimentality, whatever else? Does it have to get cold a little bit on your side? Maybe on both sides, but I'm speaking to you, so on your side?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm reasonable, I'm rational. That's how I'm always going to operate. But to say like a guy like Klay Thompson, who's meant so much to this franchise, to completely strip the emotion away from it, I think that's almost impossible. But this is a business, and we'll talk through things. We continue to talk through things, and like I said, we're hopeful, but we'll see. We got to figure things out.
Steve mentioned maybe the role changed this season for Klay. Do you have to does the salary he signs for, if it's with the Warriors, have to reflect a bench player? Does that change the way you look at this negotiation?
I think it's just kind of like what the right thing is that works for the franchise and the player and the role he's in. Factoring all those things in is what's most important, and that's kind of what what's taking place, what we're looking at. That's as simple as it is. There's probably going to be varying degrees of what that value is, but like that's on us and that's on me to figure out what's the right amount for our team.
Mike, whether it's you guys with Draymond or Denver with Jokic or Milwaukee with Middleton, second-round picks have been crucial parts of championship teams lately. What are you able to sort of take from that as you dive into the second round?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully if we can get a player like Trace last year at 52, I think we'd be really pleased. It's hard, though. The second round's tough. I mean, you look at the numbers, the odds of a guy making it, a guy becoming a rotation player, a guy becoming a really good player. You mentioned players that, almost, I don't want to say 1 in a million, but low odds of getting a quality of that player. But because of that, to have that chance, our scouts are pounding the pavement, trying to figure out who maybe at 52 could be that player, and which makes it fun. It makes it fun for everybody. A little bit different than the NFL where there's like multiple rounds. Only have 2 rounds this year. It's over the course of 2 days, which I think will bring a little bit more excitement. It'll be interesting, the interaction and the dynamics between Wednesday and Thursday. That'll be a new thing for all of us to kind of navigate. But I think it's good. We'd like to have a pick in the first round as always, but if I'm being honest, if there's ever a year not to have one, I think this might be it.
How quickly do you think you'll move to replace Kenny? And then how do you kind of just view where the coaching staff in general?
I think technically not really allowed to comment on that one, but I would say if we were to lose our lead assistant coach, we certainly need to fill that void, and we're on it. We'll be on it, and I think as far as like the roster goes, coaching staff, front office, everything, we're always evaluating how do we get better, and that's kind of the lens we'll look at it through.
How difficult is the fact, we talked earlier about the Chris Paul guarantee date, because it is where it is prior to free agency. How difficult does that make kind of putting together this offseason?
Yeah, good question. I think it's fine. I think it's fine. We know what it is. We planned for it. And I think it's more difficult about balancing the salary versus the quality of player and taking that into account, which makes it tough. I'm okay with the date. I guess we'll see if that changes. But for now, I'm good with it, understand the rules, and we'll abide by it.
Just talking about the second round of the draft, what are your thoughts just on it being 2 days now and what that extra day might do for a team that only has the number 52 overall pick right now?
Yeah, I'm intrigued by it. I'm not quite sure how it's going to unfold, but I would imagine it's going to be a lot less hectic. Normally the draft with the first round and then kind of sprinting into the second, and you just rip through it. And honestly, there's times where we don't know whose pick it is, who's picking. You got 2 minutes in between. This new scenario, this new situation, I think it's 4 minutes on the clock in the second round. It's a whole other day. So I think there'll be a lot of discussions and things going on, Thursday morning of the second round. I just think it's going to be different in that regard. And then, we'll try and get ahead of it, but we'll see. We'll react afterwards and see, okay, how did that change and what do we got to be better at in the future? But I think it's going to be a lot less hectic.
Is there a part of you, or maybe all of you, that wouldn't mind seeing the NBA sort of adapt the NFL model where free agency comes and then the draft comes after?
Yeah, I know that's been bandied about and talked through some over the years. I do think because of the NBA, I would say in general, you probably draft less for need and more for like best long-term fit versus the NFL. Not that you don't do that. It just seems to me that it's more you're drafting positionally, fit now, those types of things. It's a different dynamic. So I don't mind it being before. It's kind of what we're used to. If they changed it, we'd adjust. But I do think the NFL NBA strategy in terms of drafting is different, and so not as big of a deal for us.
I know things can always change depending on how it goes, but when you're talking about the future and the future after, whenever it is with Steph and Klay and Draymond, or Steph and Draymond for sure, safe to say that it'll be very, very tough for you to consider trading Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, Brandon Pajemski, Trace, that those guys are going to be very difficult to pry loose from the Warriors.
For sure. We really value those guys. We've drafted them. We've grown them. They've played really well. We're excited about them. So, the scenario to move them would take a lot. It's important for us to, be good now and then be good also in the future. But, the main thing is we think those guys can contribute and help our group now. If that was not the case, then we'd be more open to stuff, but it is, and so we're excited for those guys' growth this year, and I expect them to be with us.
Mike, you've obviously been in negotiations with Klay. I want to get back to him. Do you have a sense of what he wants out of this negotiation? Is it a role shift? Is it a respect? What have you gleaned that he would want out of this to come back to the Warriors?
Yeah, I think on that one, it's just I think that's kind of private. Those conversations that take place between myself and his representation, or Klay and whoever it is in our group, teammates, all that. I think that's just one that I prefer to keep private.
Are you getting calls on your young players, Kuminga specifically? I mean, are these attractive players around the league?
Yeah, I think everybody's making calls right now, whether it's on, future draft picks, current players. Everybody's trying to get better, and so everybody's exploring, asking, and it's good that the phones are ringing and there's interest in our guys. I think that's a good sign for kind of the level and quality that they're at. Doesn't mean we're too engaged with it though.
In regards to Klay and emotions and everything, from your position, how do you approach or react to when a player negotiates through the press, maybe, or maybe through social media?
Probably just like everybody else, you read it and take it in, just like any other piece of data or social media or anything like that. I don't get any sense there's negotiating going on publicly, but that's kind of my perspective.
A year ago, granted, all things changed. You did say that you weren't going to, Jordan Poole was going to be on the team about 4 days before you traded him. Is this different than that?
To be clear, I said I expected Jordan to be back on the team next year, and I did at that point. But this thing changes so quickly, especially when there's a deadline in place, whether it's a trade deadline, a draft, free agency. Things change like that, so I reserve the right to go back on, or not. I wouldn't say go back, because I said I didn't expect him to be back, and I would stick by that. And I said I expected him to be back, like I do all the guys we have under contract. I really do. Like, there's nothing going on right now where I'm like, man, this may not happen or whatever. So things can always change. Draft goes on, picks become available, something changes. But on the whole, I feel pretty comfortable with the group that we got.
Another playoff question. Watching these playoffs, it seemed to be, and watching Boston in particular, and I mean some of their teams, the three-point shot, I mean, it takes a leap every year, it seems like. And obviously Boston is like three-point happy. I mean, that's what they do. How are you guys influenced, if at all, by what you see in a postseason and by what those successful teams do and what made them successful?
Yeah, I think we're all watching. We're observing. We're seeing trends. We're seeing what's going on. I mean, last year it was, oh man, the game has changed. Big guys are in vogue. Jokic, they won the championship. To have a dynamic guy like that, and this year I think there's a lot of talk about the three-point shooting and really good guard play defensively from those Boston guards. So you get all these new kind of trends that are going in a certain direction, and it's good. But I think you have to also be mindful of it. There's a lot of ways to skin a cat, and I think there's a lot of ways to build a team, and so you got to kind of go with what you have and what makes sense building around your group, and that's kind of what we'll look to do. I don't think there's one singular way to do it, but there's some good concepts and ideas about it, and at the core of it's generally like good defense, competitiveness, high IQ, toughness. Those types of things are always really, really important, and then like the skill stuff and the position and the archetype things can vary, but I think there's a core base of things you need to win, and we'll continue to pursue those.
I'm sure it'll depend on who's available at 52, but are you going into the draft kind of assuming you're going to roster the guy that you pick?
Pretty wide open, honestly. I think between rostering, you can two-way, could trade, could two-way with the option to roster. So I'm aware, once you get into later than the second round, that generally ends up being a two-way deal, but there's also benefits of rostering a second-round pick. So honestly, on that one, it's pretty wide open.
I think we've talked to Steve a lot about Moody's role, what his future is since the season ended. And I don't know that we've asked you. What did you see from Moody this last season? Obviously, the playing time came and went. What do you foresee his role will be this coming season?
Yeah, I mean, I saw with Moses growth in a lot of areas of the game. I think the biggest thing about him is you see just an unbelievable effort when he gets put in the game. And for him, I think it was tough. His minutes kind of wavered up and down, which for any young player is challenging. But I know anytime he went in the game, he brought an A-plus effort, which is huge. It's something I know Steve could really rely on and appreciated. I think for us, the next step for Moses is more consistent minutes, finding those minutes for him. We believe he can be a pretty quality wing. His ability to shoot the ball, like I said, he plays hard, he defends. I think his activity has gotten better, his awareness, as all young players do. So I think there's a bright future. I think there's been smaller sample size than we want, but that sample size has been good in terms of what he's been able to do, so we're hoping for more.
Last year, you were kind of thrusted into this role, I believe in May after Bob had announced his departure. How are you approaching this offseason as opposed to last one when it was kind of on the fly, and what are the similarities and differences between the two?
Yeah, I mean, I think last year, a lot of was up in the air with Bob, so was kind of preparing for him not to be there, and because of that, it wasn't that big of a transition going into the draft, free agency, some stuff I had done before, so we were pretty used to it. This year, another year under your belt. I mean, just a little bit more experience, a little bit more lead up to it, but honestly, not that different. Got a job to do. Multiple ways to do it between draft, trade, free agency. This is the best time of the year, and that's how we'll approach it.
Can you confirm Looney's guarantee and just what went into the thinking their guy was kind of out of the rotation? Obviously means so much to this team and this locker room, but what was the thinking on guaranteeing that $8 million?
Yeah, we had an option to waive him. I think today was a date, and I just think we value him so much as a player, as a teammate, as a core piece of this organization. So to move on without him, without anything in return, or to move on without him and just not be able to fill that void, just didn't make a ton of sense for us. So, we were good with picking up his contract. We're excited about it, and but we'll see. As the clock turns into July and free agency, all things are always on the table and available. But for now, we feel good about having him back, and he's a great component of this organization.